Hello YouTube, this is the Warlord Shogun, and welcome to my new series, after the patch, which will be another SPVP series that discusses the patch updates and how they affected the builds and what you can expect to see in the future. I'm on my Guardian currently because he was the least affected by the patch, so I can go over his build pretty quickly and use up the rest of the time to discuss what the patch was. So the patch was basically a bunch of major things, such as like gliding in Central Tyria and a bunch of other patches all over the place for the PvE world. But there was also some pretty major changes to the PvP world as well, and that's primarily what I'm going to focus on. I will post a link in the description to the forum post where it lists out everything, but I'm going to start with the biggest things that affect all the classes, and then get into the specifics of the Guardian, and later in the series I'll show each and every other class and show how it's affected them and what builds are available to them right now, what's good, what's not, and all that. But keep in mind, this is just my opinion, and there are many builds that have not yet been discovered, and who knows? The meta is always changing and is always, it's just in a current cycle, and some things are made better and some things are made worse, and so that's all that needs to be said on that. So, big things. They removed two sigils. Actually, they removed just one, but they changed another. So they removed the sigil of demon summoning. That was basically a charge counter one that works a lot like Bloodlust. Bloodlust is here. So basically, when you killed somebody, you would get 5 stacks, and once you hit 25, basically killing 5 people without going down, it would summon a flesh, a wyvern, not a wyvern, just a flesh demon type things, like those you'd see in ore. They're kind of like the flesh harpy looking things. They really didn't do much of anything, but I used it actually way back in the day with my minion master, just for fun, because I felt like running it. It was an extra like little pet, and my minion master back in the day was incredibly overpowered. So it was just a fun little thing, but I guess they decided to remove it for whatever reason. I mean, not like nobody ran it, like nobody. I was the only one, it seemed, because I've never seen ever anybody run that signet except for myself. And my friends kind of laughed at that, and they were like, "Is it really that good?" And I'm like, "It's not, but I use it just for fun." The other sigil that they changed was energy, which was a bit disappointing because energy was a very used sigil. They changed it so now instead of it like filling half of your endurance on weapon swap, it's going to give you vigor, which is only like a couple seconds. I think it's like 5 or 6 seconds of vigor, and it's got a cooldown of 9 seconds. So I mean, it's helpful, and so I'm still going to use it, but it's just not as good as it can be. Plus, now that it's a boon, if you run into a necromancer, they can easily corrupt that. Necromancer's got a bunch of corrupt boon type stuff, but I'll get into that more when I'm on my necro. And thieves can steal it pretty easily. So it's definitely a nerf for this sigil, but I'm still going to use it. It's still helpful. Boons are still boons. Moving on to the runes. They removed the rune of mercy and the rune of durability. I'm not going to say much on those because I honestly don't know a whole lot about those runes. I think they were just a little bit underused, and they were overused by some other classes. I really don't know a whole lot, so I can't really mourn the loss of it, though I do remember seeing them. But they removed it, and that's all that needs to be said on that. There's plenty of other runes, so there's no need to mourn the loss of it over it, whether it was overpowered or not. But the big thing that everybody is mourning over right now is the loss of 4 amulets, and they were good ones. So they removed the Celestial Amulet. So as you can see, no longer here. The Celestial Amulet, for all of you who may not know for whatever reason, the Celestial Amulet is the stats where it's even across the board. So stats to power, toughness, vitality, precision, ferocity, all of it. So every single stat got a boost. Just a little one though, it's not major, not focused on anything. It was prime stuff for the Elementalist, and some Necromancer builds ran it. You know, there were a lot of builds that could run Celestial. It was an easy pick because it was even across the board, a little bit of everything. It just kind of helped speed things along. It was a really solid amulet, but they decided to remove it because people have been complaining about that since the very beginning. I mean, since the very beginning, Elementalists were running it, other next to Cleric back in that day. That was back in like the first year Guild Wars was Guild Wars 2 came out. But Celestial's been overpowered since the beginning. So they, instead of just nerfing it way down, they just decided to get rid of it, which I think was a smart decision, because I feel like people would have used the Celestial Amulet pretty much no matter what, just because of the stats that it offered. They removed the Sentinel Amulet, which isn't much of a thing to cry over. I mean, the Sentinel Amulet wasn't anything to really be sad over. Apologies to any of you that actually used that one, but it really wasn't anything major. They also removed Settler's Amulet, and Settler's, the stat combination for that, I think, was really big on the toughness and the condition damage, though they put in some stuff to compensate for that. So I'm pretty sure that's what Settlers was. And they removed Soldiers, which I was the most shocked about, because Soldiers was just power, toughness, vitality. I mean, that's a super standard type of setup, though it was highly used amongst engineers, mostly, like my engineer used it. It was good for warriors, some warrior builds that didn't need to critical, and they were more toughness themed, with like stances or something. So that's a sad loss as well. But they added 4 new amulets, as you probably saw as I was scrolling through the amulets. So I'm going to quickly go over them, and then I'll hop into what changed on the Guardian, and show you what the build is from there. So the first amulet is Mender's Amulet. It's Power, Precision, Vitality, Healing Power. So basically this one is good for I mean, things like Necros even could use this. I mean, it's just power, crit chance, you know, some health, a large amount of healing power. So, also good for tanking because it gives vitality and healing power. Even though it doesn't give toughness, this is still a viable option for tank builds. The only downside of this is you get precision without the ferocity, so you'd have to have another way of either getting ferocity, or you'd have to make a build that relies on the precision, like with the Sigils of Fire and Air, and just go with that. But that's all I'm going to say on Mender's Amulet. Next is Mercenary's Amulet, Power, Toughness, Vitality, Condition. This one's an interesting one because it provides toughness and vitality, and it also provides power. I always kind of said that this one was to replace the Soldier Amulet because it's Power, Toughness, Vitality, but now they've added condition damage on top of it. So this is like the new Carrion, I would say, because Carrion Amulet up here is just power, vitality, condition damage, and you can see the stats there. And Mercenary isn't all that different, plus it's providing more power and a slightly less condition damage, like only 150, and instead is giving 560 toughness and vitality. So any build that runs Carrion, I would suggest you switch over to Mercenaries, because I think Mercenary Amulet is going to help you more than the Carrion would. So I think this is an upgrade and a step up from Carrion, but Carrion provides much more vitality just in general, but Mender's provides more power, or not Mender's, Mercenaries, sorry, provides more power, and having extra toughness doesn't hurt either for those resisting those burst builds. The next one they added was Paladin's Amulet, which I thought was a silly name for this one, considering Paladins are supposed to be holy warriors, and in most other games, Paladins provide healing and tanking, and this one doesn't really do the healing part. It can do the tanking part, but not as much as you'd think. So I think this is kind of a silly name for it. But regardless of the name, it's the stats that matter. So, power, precision, toughness, vitality, another good tanking option. This one's similar to Knight's Amulet, in my opinion, because this is power, precision, toughness, and this is power, precision, toughness as well with added vitality. So again, if I may say, I say this one is a step up from Knights, even though Knights gives a lot more toughness than Paladins gives, but Paladins gives that vitality boost, which kind of makes up for it, plus it's going to give much more power and precision. So it's based on preference, but you don't need a whole lot of toughness to survive out there in PvP, as long as you got, you know, evades and healing to cover for it. And that's really all that needs to be said on that. If you're going to be running more tanky setup, then you can go for the Knights, because it is only slightly less power to choose Knights than Paladins, but I think Paladins is the better choice. And here we have Sage's Amulet. This is the fourth and final amulet they added. Power, Vitality, Healing, Power, Condition Damage. This one was to replace the Settler's Amulet, I believe, because Settlers, I think, was Condition Damage, Healing, Power, and Toughness, something like that. I forget. But this is Power, Vitality, Healing, Power, Condition Damage. So for this one, again, this is a choice over Carrion because it's Power, Condition Damage, Vitality, but this one also adds more healing power. So for this, I would say if you're running Warrior or Necromancer with Carrion, you can switch it over to Sages, because Sages is now a very good option to get that added healing power, especially even for the Warrior if you're running the Heal Signet. So yeah, I'd say this is a very valid option for that kind of build. And that's it for the amulets, the runes, and the sigils. So now I will be getting into the traits and whatnot that have changed on the Guardian. So I'm not going to show them all like here, I'm just going to briefly explain them and the ones that I use, because this is a build video as much as it is, you know, an announcement kind of thing to all the PvPers out there who need to learn what has changed and how they need to switch around their build. So there's a trait in the Zeal trait line called Zealous Scepter, and they basically doubled the might gain from that. So basically they increased the might stacking from 1 to 2 stacks for every 10 seconds when Justice is triggered. So this, you're just gaining more might from all that stuff. Wrathful Spirit, I believe that's also in Zeal. It increases retaliation from 3 seconds to 4 seconds. It just whatever that trait does, you know, it increased it from 3 to 4 seconds. Not a big deal there. It's just a slight number increase. Not exactly sure why they increased it. Probably just to balance it more with the other traits in that line. Stalwart Defender. This is one that I use, and I believe, yes, right here. So you can see it on the screen. They increased the toughness from 180 to 240. That's really all that happened with that. Basically, even though 2 patches ago now, including the one that I'm talking about now and then the last one, they had buffed the shield. So now they like added Aegis to the wave, they added more damage, and they allowed the 5 skill here to move, so you're mobile now and can block. But people still would not use the shield. They just thought it was trash and would rather use the focus to get those 3 blocks off. And they wanted that ranged regeneration Ray of Judgment, I think it was called, for the focus, and they still would not use the shield. So in this patch, they increased the trait rather than buffing the shield farther to make the shield like not overpowered. So now you have to actually trade it to make the shield better than the focus. So now if you pick this one, you're going to be even more tanky. And as you can see, it's plus 240 toughness, and my toughness is way up there. You can see my armor rating, it is nice right now. That's just because I have the shield out. I mean, if I swap weapons, you can see it goes down, but my armor still remains way up in the 3000s. So I really like that they did that. It buffed my Guardian Bunker build. Next trait they changed was Invigorated Bulwark. That I also use. It's this trait right here. It's for the mace. Basically, when you block attacks, it increases your heal power, and the Invigorated Bulwark can stack up to 10 times. Basically, they changed it so now instead of it lasting for only 10 seconds, it lasts 30 seconds. So that's a major increase. I mean, that is huge. And basically, when you have the mace out, you can block attacks with Protector Strike. When I have it out, I like to activate my Virtue of Courage to get the Aegis for another block, and I try and time my my shelters in order to do it. Plus, since they buffed the shield, you get Aegis from that. So now I can stack this and actually stack it long enough to where when I switch over to staff, this healing power stays on me, and that was the the thought process ANET had when they changed this to 30 seconds, and since this can stack up to 10 times, if I were to block, like say a warrior used 100 blades as I used shelter and I stacked it up to 10 times, that is 500 healing power bonus. That is absolutely massive, especially since I run clerics. Like you can already see it's 1200. Imagine this at 1700. Like that's more healing than any class can get in the game. That's why I still prefer to use Bunker Guardian over Druid, because no class out there can heal like a Bunker Guardian can. It just can't. So this is the trait that got the most boost, even in like the whole patch update. I'd say this trait got the best part of it. Moving on, the Protective Reviver, that was right here. They basically added the increased revive speed of 10%, and that's really all that did. Now the next trait that I'm going to talk to you is actually a skill-based one. They changed Smite conditions to now remove 2 conditions, as you can see there, so they buffed that even farther. And I have a trait spent to where when I use a heal skill, it'll activate the Smite Condi. Where is that? As soon as I find it... here it is. Okay, so whenever you use a heal ability, it uses Smite conditions. So now, they've buffed how many conditions I can remove by a total of 2. So I'm gaining an extra condition removal from Smite condition and from my heal. So I remove a lot more Condi now. So that's really helpful, and now that helps to kind of buff Meditation some more, because they needed just a little bit of a buff to compete with the Dragon Hunter stuff, which I'm going to get to in a minute, because they got a lot of nerfs, basically, but I'll get into that. Bane's Signet. Bane's Signet is, I believe, the damage one, yeah, and they basically reduced the recharge from 40 seconds to 30 seconds. So now the Guardians can knock down a little bit better, and yeah, I mean it just makes it a little more useful. But I haven't seen it get any play recently. Knockdown Guardian was a thing quite some time ago, but not so much anymore. Though you never know, it could come back. It's a really handy thing to have. It's come in really handy to chase people running away, because of the range is 1200. You say, yeah, you can knock down for 3 seconds at a range of 1200. It's really helpful, but I haven't seen a build that really takes advantage of it quite yet. Next, they changed Signet of Judgment. It's another just reduced recharge from 30 down to 25. Judgment is the defense one. I can see why they would want to do that, because, you know, this one doesn't really see much play. Even for Guardians that like to bunker, 10% reduced incoming damage really doesn't do much for you. So, I mean, it's just not very helpful. So reducing the cooldown on it helps make it a little more helpful, but I still don't think it's enough to make it see any play over Dragon Hunters and Bunker Guardians. I just don't think it's very applicable for PvP standards anyway. Now, the biggest buff that the Guardians got in terms of skills is Sanctuary. They reduced the recharge from 120 seconds, basically 2 minutes, down to 90 seconds, so it's a minute and a half now. So that's very helpful, though I still don't think this is going to help it all that much, considering Guardians don't use Sanctuary very much anymore. Considering stability is such an easy thing to gain now, they can just walk through it, and the area of effect for Sanctuary isn't very long, plus the duration is only 6 seconds, which might not be enough to get the healing or the res off that you need. And plus, if they really wanted to get off a res, they would just use Protective Reviver and use the rune that increases revive speed, and thus that really doesn't make Sanctuary much of any use. So I don't think that patch is really going to affect the use of Sanctuary at all. Moving on to the Dragon Hunter. So they changed the Wings of Resolve. So basically, if Dragon Hunters are hit by movement impairing effects, such as Cripple, Slow, anything like that, even Swiftness as well, it no longer affects how far they can fly, kind of thing. So now they're always going to reach their target location, unless, of course, you know, they're immobilized or something. But any movement impairing, like Chill, Cripple, all that, it's not going to affect how far they can go anymore. Their test of faith, basically, the initial damage from the skill was reduced from 66% to 50%. I believe that was a trap, and basically that means they reduced the damage by 25%, and they changed all the traps so that their bursting isn't as frequent. So their damage only got nerfed like roughly 25% across the board, as you can see in the forum post, but and they also went even a step further with that to, you know, make it so that the damage isn't as frequent. So the traps definitely took a hit with this patch, which I honestly don't mind, considering Dragon Hunters were just a little bit overpowered, in my opinion. Like, they were really good, and they rivaled that of like the Power Ranger build with Longbow, and so I felt like that was a good competition, so that Rangers can be open to play something else, like another class even, to do Dragon Hunter. Oh, and it was more burst all at once, which is probably more preferred than the rapid fire. But regardless, traps got a little bit nerfed. Now, they actually buffed the Dragon's Maw, the elite skill trap that pulls them in kind of thing. They increased the barrier radius from 90 to 120. So basically that allows people to move around just a little bit more, but it's kind of a larger area, so you can trap more people in it. So it's kind of a buff and a nerf at the same time, just kind of a thing there. They reduced the barrier duration from 6 seconds to 4 seconds, so it's not going to last near as long anymore. But that doesn't really matter all that much, considering the damage output that Dragon Hunters can still do. So that really doesn't matter all that much. And again, with the traps, they activate less frequently. Procession of Blades, that's the one that triggers the spinning swords. Basically, that's just going to hit less. That's all they changed on that. The damage is still the same. And Piercing Light, the day's duration was decreased by half to 0.5 seconds. That really doesn't matter. A daze is a daze. It doesn't matter if it's a second or half a second or whatever it is, because it's still an interrupt. That's what daze is supposed to be. It's the soft crowd control. So honestly, that doesn't matter all that much. And the daze from the trait's no longer unblockable. So basically, the daze can be blocked now. And that's all of the trait / skill patches with the Guardian. And I'm not going to go over my whole build again, because it's remained pretty much the same throughout the patch. I mean, it's exactly the same actually, because I haven't changed anything. I was just going to go over the patch notes to explain how much more powerful this build gets. And the only slight nerf that this build received was the Sigil of Energy, but honestly that was it. So this build still plays the same. I'm not going to go over it. I'm going to go over how the build works in an unranked PvP video, which I will be doing after I release all my build videos again. Some of my character classes have changed entirely on the strategies they used, just because I'd like to try something new, and some things got buffed, others got nerfed. So, yep, you never know. Alright, so thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment with questions, comments, concerns with the patch, and stay tuned for PvP videos of unranked, because the ranked season is currently over right now. But when ranked kicks back up, I can do some ranked matches instead, though I suspect I'm going to be able to get my videos out before the next ranked season starts, considering how long it took for the next ranked season to start the last time it was shut down. So, thank you guys for watching, and have a good day.